good news to report on nearly all fronts.
Perch patterns have been working really well.
This week's Buzzbite report. Just keep snapping it off the body.
The down imaging, the side imaging. There's a lot of different variations and different ways to rig this.
Oh, yeah! Look at this giant.
They are heavy.
Oh, look at that.
On today's show, an American favorite, the crappie.
This is AnglingBuzz TV. I'm Troy Linder.
I'm Jim Edlund.
You know, crappie is one of America's favorite sport fish. Across the upper Midwest, they're pretty abundant. And when you're talking about introducing youth into fishing, I think it's a great way. You know, they get a little bit bigger than bluegills, and they're also really great to eat.
Absolutely, Troy. And you know, throughout the AnglingBuzz region, it seems like we're on an upswing, largely thanks to smart management, catch and release, minimum length requirements. Here in Minnesota, we've got some special reg lakes, and the fishing's good.
Let's go around the upper Midwest and learn a little bit more about what opportunities there are for catching crappie. According to fishing market researchers Southwick and Associates and AnglerSurvey.com, panfish are America's second favorite fish, right behind the largemouth bass. And within the larger category of panfish, crappies consistently come out on top. A similar trend has emerged in Minnesota. Results from a questionnaire sent to random fishing license holders puts crappies ahead of yellow perch, even bluegills. All this data shouldn't be too surprising. Found in most U.S. waters, crappies run larger than bluegills, provide lots of action, and excellent table fare at the end of the day. The best time to catch them? It's pretty hard to beat spring for both numbers and size, but there's some misunderstanding as to why crappies move shallow. Anglers tend to look at any shallow crappie movement as spawning behavior, but there's much more to it than targeting bedding fish. As soon as the ice melts, the shallow water food web awakens. Microinvertebrates and minnows draw waves of crappies into warmer, shallow water. The buffet is officially open after months of suspending in deeper water with minimal movement. Then there's the pre-spawn push shallow to shop nesting sites, which males fan out for females. But the actual spawn is a short-lived affair, and females vacate for the nearest deeper cover after dropping their eggs. It's the males that stay behind to guard the eggs and fry. But no matter what stage you find them shallow, you don't need a boat to catch them. Come ice out in the Midwest, anglers start lining the shores of bays, channels, and boat harbors, catching fish with simple hook, line, and sinker tactics. A pair of waders, canoe, fishing kayak, or john boat can open up areas a little bit harder to access. In terms of tackle, a bobber, an Aberdeen-style hook or small jig head, some live bait, and just about any rod and reel will do. Of course, savvy panfish anglers have greatly refined their tactics, using longer rods and thin diameter superlines like Suffolk's Nano Braid for longer casts with tiny jigs and microplastics. No live bait required. But some days, even springtime crappies can be difficult. They're stacked up like cordwood in shallow water one day, gone the next. Reality is, cold fronts can push crappies deeper and lock their paper-thin lips. But they're usually not too far away, typically on that first break to deeper water, which could be 6, 10, or 20 feet deep, depending. That's when a slip bobber rig, tiny jig, or minuscule crappie minnow or microplastic can work wonders. This much is certain. Spring crappie fishing is too much fun to miss. And thanks to smart management by state agencies and anglers adopting selective harvest, the crappie fishing in many parts of the country is the best it's ever been, in terms of numbers and size.
You know, early season crappie fishing is just something that I don't like to miss, Troy. It's like hunting morel mushrooms. You've got a narrow window of time to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm just consistently amazed at, you know, some of these waters are kicking out giant fish. Recently in Illinois, there was that, you know, almost 5-pound fish that crushed the state record last winter in the West Metro. There were a couple fish, you know, right around that 19 inches. My own daughter caught a 17-inch crappie on hard water this last winter. She released it. I was super proud of her.
That's awesome. When they get that size, they are absolute blast to catch. Just a few months ago, I was fishing a bass tournament. My buddy Derek caught his personal best crappie. We're fishing for bass, and I got into a couple really big red ear. I mean, when they get that size, you're talking 17, 18 inches, there's nothing like it. It's a lot of fun. Our next segment will help you find crappies right now.
This Underwater Minute is brought to you by AquaView, the original underwater camera. Location and cover is the key to find early season crappies. In the big picture, it may seem simple. Shallow bays and channels that warm up fast in spring are good areas to start the hunt. But early season crappie fishing can be somewhat fickle due to erratic spring weather patterns and fluctuating water temperature. But once the weather and water temperature stabilizes, typically around the 50-degree mark, cover and bottom content conducive to spawning becomes more critical. Now that we're in the right area, here are some things to look for. Number 1, bulrushes, dead or alive. Bulrushes tend to grow on hard or firm bottom areas that are perfect for crappie nesting. Number 2, developing lily pad fields is another good area to target springtime crappies. Many times, in early season, these pad fields are not visible above the water. A good pair of polarized sunglasses and underwater camera help find these submerged pad fields and fish. Last but not least, wood. Early season crappies love wood cover. You name it, stumps, brush, fallen trees are all crappie magnets in spring. With knowledge comes responsibility, so remember to selectively harvest crappies for future generations.
Yeah, there's a lot of nuances with shallow water movement when talking about crappies. Well, coming up after this break, we have our highlight destination feature and the first of our BuzzBite reports as Angling Buzz continues.
Excel Outdoors, storage solutions for sportsmen. Cargo rack, cargo trunk, bucket caddy, Jaws of Ice, the best auger carrier ever. Hunting, the ladder stand caddy, fishing game boards, and the extruder board. Organize your life outside. Excel Outdoors.
Lake Vermilion. Explore. Relax. Reconnect.
Minnesota's most beautiful lake.
Get hooked on our trophy walleye,
That's a beauty.
bass,
My favorite fish.
musky fish,
That's a beauty there.
Things to do? You'll never get bored.
Rooms with a view? We got 'em.
Lake Vermilion. 4 seasons of fun.
Running in rough water can be a pain, literally,
Hey, I never knew how comfortable a ride could be.
until I added Smooth Moves to my boat. Its 4-spring design with hydraulic shock can smooth even the roughest of rides. With the built-in slide and swivel, you maintain all the function of your existing seat. A turn of the handle adjusts for conditions and passenger weight.
Hey, it's easy to install and built to last.
Smooth Moves, your back will thank you. I know mine does.
Welcome back to Angling Buzz. We're here in Minnesota, and this past weekend was walleye opener. Everybody's got walleye on their mind.
Yeah, but what's interesting, Troy, is that walleye opener every year in Minnesota also coincides with a peak period for catching crappies. So if you're out there, you get your fish, or you're taking kids fishing, don't forget about crappies.
Yeah, absolutely. And right now in our highlight destination feature, we're going on a Midwest crappie hunt. Starting out east, Michigan offers many great crappie waters throughout the upper and lower peninsulas. In the lower peninsula, Michigan's largest natural inland lake, 20,000-acre Houghton, is relatively shallow, stained, and offers plenty of weed growth, perfect habitat for the lake's plentiful black and white crappies. In spring, anglers take the lake's canals and boat harbors, pitching small jigs from ice out through early summer. At over 60 square miles, Wisconsin's Lake Petenwell and Castle Rock and the Wisconsin River flowage are crappie hotspots from mid-April through early June. Both waters provide plenty of opportunities for bank and boat anglers. On Petenwell, bank fishermen congregate along the west shore below the Nakusa Dam, and boat anglers tie off to fallen trees, catching fish deeper as the day progresses. But all report the size classes up. To the south, Castle Rock offers more crappie action. Boaters fish the 18 to 20 foot hump below the Petenwell Dam, and there's an easy access for shore anglers along the Buckhorn Bridge. river rats on the Mississippi from the Missouri-Illinois border all the way north into Minnesota can be a bit tight-lipped about spring crappie bites. But backwaters, oxbows, submerged wood, and eddies all attract fish. Northeastern South Dakota's Glacial Lakes region is a spring crappie hotbed. Anglers look to the smaller lakes and sloughs which warm up first, or northern bays in the larger waters. Many spots are easily accessible from shore via gravel roads and state land. Top producers include pickerel and bitter. But don't be afraid to explore the region's many smaller waters, keeping a lookout for spring crappie magnets in the form of wood and pencil reeds. Although there's been some fluctuation in year classes on both Jamestown and Pipestem Reservoir in central North Dakota, anglers are still reporting solid spring bites, with size improving each year. In fact, the North Dakota state record crappie was tied in 2013 by Chris Rick with a 3-pound, 4-ounce monster on Jamestown Reservoir. The northernmost destination on today's crappie map, Rainy Lake's expansive waters grow giant crappies. Second only to the lake's incredible fall crappie bite, spring is prime time. Depending on ice out, the hot bite on Rainy Lake can start in early May and last through mid-June, which finds willing crappies in the lake's numerous bays. Average fish are 12 to 13 inches, as well as bonus walleyes and bronzebacks.
Wow, those are some hot crappie destinations. Rainy, any time of year. Wisconsin River flowage, Dakotas, I've been lucky enough to fish some of them. Great crappie fishing.
Yes, it is. And right now we want to switch gears from crappies to walleyes. The walleye opener in Minnesota just happened. Let's head over to Leech Lake with Jeff Anderson.
I just wanted to run down the 3 jigging techniques or presentations that I used on Leech Lake for the opener. The first is a spot tail shiner, and I love a stand-up jig. This is a Northland stand-up jig, 1/8 ounce on a spot tail shiner. I also love hair jig, like this Kin Catch hair jig. This has a different action than the stand-up jig. This one will rip up fast and fall down slow. This is more of a rip and then a faster fall. So each have triggering qualities, but we found progressive weed growth on Leech Lake and we actually caught more fish on a new soft plastic by Svarts Anchor Tackle. This is the McRubber twist tail, 4-inch model, rigged on a long shank bass shaky head jig. If you're headed up to Leech Lake, make sure to find that green weeds. That's where the walleyes are right now. And don't be afraid to go get down and get dirty. Rip, 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 rip. That's a triggering factor. The water temps are on the rise and these fish are really hungry.
Yeah, it was a great opener here in Minnesota. I know you were out there as well.
Hey, we had a blast. We caught fish on spot tails, pitching plastics, shallow water, 4 to 10 feet. It was a blast, Troy.
Nice. Now let's head up on Lake Vermilion with Billy Rosner.
Things are really starting to buzz up here. We've been catching walleyes shallow. We've been catching walleyes deep. Typical Lake Vermilion. They're kind of all over the place right now. We're fishing shallow, a jig and a minnow. Plastics are working good up shallow. Rigs are working also, like a 38, 42-inch rig. I like a bead on them, put a 3-inch minnow on there, like a rainbow. Those will catch you fish. You're fishing out in the mud, that 25 to 35-foot stuff. The walleyes are right on the bottom. They're eating bugs and larvae right in that mud. Go a little heavy with that, 3/8 ounce jig and a 3-inch rainbow. Beat the bottom, and that'll put some walleyes in the boat also. If you're looking for something to do in the afternoons, the bays are warming up nicely. The crappies are in. Or if you want to do some northern pike fishing, cast like some number 3, number 4 blue fox, or troll some number 9 floating wraps in those areas. They'll put some pike in the boat.
Really interesting stuff from Mr. Rosner. Just goes to prove the point that not all the fish are doing the same thing at the same time.
Yeah, you're right about that. And coming up after this break, we have more Buzz Bite reports. Stay with us.
Sportfish Michigan is your #1 source for top charter captains and fishing guides in Michigan. Our network of professionals are full-time anglers with years of experience providing customers with the best possible fishing trip services. Fish for trout, salmon, steelhead on Lake Michigan or its famous tributary rivers, the Traverse City area's world-class smallmouth bass, walleye fishing on the Detroit River and Saginaw Bay, or northern Michigan's spectacular ice fishing. We do it all. Sportfish Michigan. Get out. Get bit.
If you're looking at this, how do you know it's not this? If you see this, how do you know it's not actually this? Trust your AquaView and you'll see the real underwater world. AquaView leads by innovation. First in high definition, first in handheld viewing, the finest underwater optics, the brightest, sharpest screens, the original underwater camera, and the fish finder that puts you on the fish.
Because boaters know and follow Minnesota's aquatic invasive species laws, 98% of lakes are not known to have any zebra mussels. 95% are not known to have any kind of invasive animals or plants. Let's keep it this way. Clean aquatic plants and animals from boats, trailers, and equipment. Drain all water from watercraft, including the motor, and keep drain plugs out during transport. Dispose of unused bait properly. Together, we're preventing the spread of aquatic invasive species in Minnesota.
Welcome back to Angling Buzz. We're heading over to South Dakota next. I was recently there fishing the Glacial Lakes region, throwing swim baits up shallow, caught a lot of white bass, a lot of largemouth bass, pike, just a great bite going on. And we're joining Chad Schilling right now over on Lake Oahe.
The bite, as with tradition, is starting up on the northern end of Hawaii and it's working its way down. It's actually coming a lot faster than I expected with the cold weather we had last week. Really good bite up across the state line into North Dakota all the way back down to the Pollock area. That bite's been probably the most consistent. Mobridge is showing some life. It's starting to take off a little bit. The Morrow River is the same. You catch fish for a day, you get a few, but it's nothing real hot and heavy yet. Right now the best presentations is dragging a split shot, a hook and a minnow, Lindy rigging a minnow. Not many crawlers being used yet. Pitch and jig shallow has been okay, but the best bite has been vertical with jigs and minnows or just the short pitches in deeper water. 15 to 20 feet of water, quite a bit of action, not hot and heavy yet, but we're looking forward to the warm week coming up and for the bite to just get better. Good luck out there, guys.
That's definitely great news. No matter where you're fishing throughout the Missouri River system, fish are moving around and they're getting caught.
Yeah, they are. And right now we're heading over to the Alexandria region of Minnesota for our next Buzz Bite.
First thing people ask me is, Joe, there's hundreds of bodies of water around here. How do you even choose? And it can be a little daunting. If you look at an aerial map, it's almost all water. But the deeper bodies of water, I'm going to hold off till maybe mid-June and all summer long. So right after opener, all May here, I'm going to be really targeting those shallower bodies of water. And the walleyes, when you clean them, they're just full of minnows. So I see people trying leeches, crawlers, and you can try all those. And there's a few lakes that do well with those type of baits, but in general, these lakes are plumb full of beautiful shiners. So that's naturally what they're going to eat this time of year, and the shiners are all up spawning. So walleyes are in shallow, shiners are in shallow. There's no better bait to throw to them than what they're eating already. And as far as areas to target, sand, rocks, anything in shallow there where those shiners are going to be is going to be my key for the first couple weeks.
And now let's check in with Luke Cabot up in Schwamigan Bay, Wisconsin.
We've got a lot of stuff going on. It's almost too hard to choose just one thing to do in a day. So I've been doing as much as I can. I've been running out early in the morning in the Apostle Islands, chasing brown trout, and there's a bunch of coho salmon around right now. We've been throwing spoons and throwing jerk baits, husky jerks, those types of things along the rocky shorelines, picking up fish like that. As it warms up through the day, running back into the bay and chasing pre-spawn smallmouth. The smallmouth are starting to show up. The water temperatures are bumping into that mid 50 range at times, and cooling off at night again. But we're just swimming really small grubs on light jig heads, real slow, just picking up fish like that. So it's been kind of a fun option to run out and chase the browns and salmon in the morning, and as it warms up, run back into the bay to fish smallmouth. It's probably my favorite time of year to do those combination trips, fishing shallow water for the browns and then shallow water for the bass. It's a really, really fun option, and it's only going to get better from here.
Yeah, that looks like a pretty fun combination. Early morning jerkbait fishing for big brown trout and then switching gears for big smallmouth.
Wow. And from a center console bait boat, that sounds like saltwater fishing,
Yeah, it
Troy.
does.
Cool.
Hey, we're heading over to Michigan next with Captain Ben Wolf.
It's mid-May, and we have some tremendous opportunities all across the state. For the salmon angler, we have some tremendous opportunities in the southwestern portion of the state. Saugatuck, Holland, those ports like that are fishing very well for 2- and 3-year-old king and coho salmon. In northern Michigan, out of Frankfort and Manistee, we have some fantastic brown trout action. Trolling spoons or minnow-imitating body baits is the key to getting these big brown trout to bite. Another great option all across the state is perch fishing. These fish are just coming off of the spawn and are starting to feed up heavily as they transition towards deeper waters for the summer. Using a perch rig with live minnows or a jigging spoon with either a minnow head, piece of shrimp, or a wiggler is really a great option this time of the year. For more information, or if you're looking for a captain or guide in the state of Michigan, give us a call today or check us out on the web, sportfishmichigan.com.
We want to thank all of our BuzzBite reporters for giving us that great information.
And after this quick break, we'll be back with cool products and the technique of the week.
Explore Alexandria, Minnesota. Whether it's a long weekend or a week-long loaded with family fun, you'll find plenty of things to do in Alex. Unleash your inner explorer with over 300 lakes, beaches, parks, hundreds of miles of trails, dining, golf, shopping, museums, and history. Alexandria is Minnesota's hidden gem. Go to explorealex.com to find your vacation this season.
You have a choice, turf or surf. It's fishing season. Welcome to the outdoors. We're baiting, casting, drifting, and limiting out. The outdoors never felt so good. Catch, release, and keepers. The outdoors never tasted so good. It's fishing season. We are outdoors. Mills Fleet Farm.
Looking for the perfect fishing vacation? Leech Lake, Minnesota. There's over 112,000 acres of water to explore with fantastic walleye, bass, pike, panfish, and trophy muskies. The fishing opportunities are endless. Leech Lake has it all with over 30 resorts, lodges, campgrounds, and hotels line its pristine shores. Plan your trip. It's Minnesota's original up-north vacation destination.
And now it's time for today's cool products segment brought to you by Mills Fleet Farm. Springtime crappies. Although we just had walleye opener here in Minnesota, lots of anglers are still out catching crappies. Pretty hard to beat a tube when it comes to springtime crappies. Available at Mills Fleet Farm is this 180 bait assortment with jig heads and lots of different colors from Southern Plastics. We move on, we've got the Mr. Twister, which is a curly tail, great for finding fish, the Puddle Jumper, and Northland Tackle has introduced scent to the equation as well with Impulse in a variety of profiles, including mayfly larvae and some bait fish imitators that are deadly effective and housed in a little container, much like you'd have your waxworms in the wintertime. Easy to carry, easy to store, easy to find. Along those same lines, plastics for finding fish, you combine a safety pin spinner and you've got a deadly search bait. The beetle spin is really hard to beat. It's been used for decades from Johnson. VMC also has their own version of the curl tail spinner bait available in some ultra glow patterns. Then once you find those fish, there are a couple things you can do. During cold fronts, and when fish are out a little bit deeper, it's really hard to beat hair. Mr. Crappie Slab Daddy has a big number 4 hook. It's great for putting a minnow on the back and catches fish during these tough conditions. We've got some other pre-rigged options. When you're looking to find fish, the boot tail from VMC is a great bait, the flap tail, the mimic minnow from Northland, lots of pre-rigged options. Once you do find the fish, you can drop a talon or put out the anchor, especially with friends, family, and kids. It's fun to fish with floats. Fixed floats sometimes are the way to go because it's easy to adjust your depth. I like bobbers that are shaped in more of a cylinder. They're easier for fish to pull down. A lot also have a counterweight, which makes them easy to cast. When those fish are out a little bit deeper, or you need a lot of flexibility in terms of depth, it's also hard to beat a slip float. We've got options here from both Northland and VMC. You know, this one lights up, lots of fun for night fishing and for kids. So as far as setup for springtime crappies, a lot of anglers have switched to Superline. This nano braid from Suffolk, especially in like a 2-pound test that has 6-pound test strength, is great for flinging these tiny baits, whether you're casting them with or without a float. To those ends, the St. Croix Panfish series is a great selection of rods available from 5 feet all the way to 11 feet for fishing panfish. This 7-footer is a great all-around length for most pan fishing. You combine it with this nano braid, a fluorocarbon leader. You can cast to your heart's delight. You'll be amazed at the cover you can reach without spooking fish. Just fantastic. So definitely investigate longer rods. You'll have a lot of fun. You'll reach more fish and have a great time doing it.
Speed is a critical factor when it comes to crappies or any panfish for that matter, spring, summer, and fall. And even when the fish are really aggressive, your bait can't be moving too fast. Right now it's early season and the fish are in the shallows. Slip floats are one of the best ways I know to present a small jig in a plastic or live bait in shallow water. The key is to position that bait at the same level or slightly above the fish. In this case, I have the bait about 4 feet below the slip float. Once I isolate some fish, I pinpoint the boat in the exact location and cast to them. Throughout the summer, when these fish are set up on deeper weed lines, I simply cast a small jig or a tiny safety pin spinner. Again, speed is vital and that's slow. In this case, I will cast out the bait and count down the bait to whatever level the fish are at and then slowly retrieve the bait. Crappies will often suspend around the tops of weeds. Boat speed again, slow. If you're blowing around too fast, you probably won't catch any fish. In the fall, lots of crappies and pans gather together in deep water in that 15 to 35 foot range. Most of the time, I use my electronics to sight fish. My baits of choice are small jigs with plastics or number 3 jigging wraps. The key here is boat control, where you just hover over the top of fish and drop the bait straight down below the boat. Again, you want to position the bait at the same level or just above the fish and hold the bait there. When it comes to crappies and panfish, it's all about lure speed and boat control.
Speed is a very important factor when you're talking about catching panfish.
No doubt, Troy. Hey, and the same principle applies to all fish that swim. Depending on how fast you present that bait can mean the difference between being a hero and a zero. Hey, on next week's show, we cover seasonal peaks.
Yeah, I've had a few 0 days. But we want to remind you again to help stop the spread of aquatic invasive species. Anytime you leave any body of water, remember, clean, drain, and dry. And be sure to check us out online. You know the website, AnglingBuzz.com. That's where we have all of our guide reports, up-to-date tips and tactics to help you catch more fish right now. And you can also enter our Mills Fleet Farm sweepstakes and win a fabulous weekend of fishing and fun on Lake Vermilion. Thank you for joining us. I'm Troy Lindner.
I'm Jim Edlin. We'll see you out on the water.
This week's Buzz Bite Report.
Tony Roach.
Ray Brolstone.
Lee Telkin here.
Topwater's been really fun.
Good luck, everybody.
Have fun. We'll see you next week.